welcome everybody to the very first episode of the CANDDID podcast. This is a space where we want to explore the stories, the people and the innovations behind the CANDDID mission. I'm your host, Carrie Hunt, and I'm the R&D manager at Cheshire and Wirral NHS Partnership Trust. And today we're kicking things off with a very special conversation. On this first episode, I'm joined by two of the people who have been instrumental in shaping what CANDDID is today, Sajid Jadakor and Maddie Lowry. From the spark of an idea to where we are now, we're going to dive into the origins of CANDDID, the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the vision that keeps this work moving forward. So whether you're already part of the CANDDID community or you're just discovering us for the first time, this episode hopefully will be a perfect place to start. So let's get into it.
So should I start? So I'm Sajid Jadakor. So my day job is consultant psychiatrist. I work with people with learning disabilities and those with neurodevelopmental conditions. So I work for Cheshire and Wirral Partnership and NHS Foundation Trust. I do have some other roles as well. So my non-clinical role is academic. I'm director of research for the trust, and I also take academic responsibility for CANDDID. So I'm academic director for CANDDID. And at personal level, I'm a parent. I'm a parent carer. So I'm a parent of a child who has ADHD, who is autistic and has developmental delays. So a lot of my personal experiences also feed into my work.
Thanks, Sajid. Maddie?
Hi, I'm Maddie Lowry. My day job is I'm the Associate Director for Learning Disability and Neurodevelopmental Conditions, including acquired brain injury at Cheshire and Wirral Partnership NHS Trust. And for CANDDID, I'm the Strategic Manager, responsible for making sure that CANDDID is sustainable, that we can deliver on our agenda, and bringing a general management function into what is predominantly a clinically led a centre. And I think that's my unique contribution, is to try to drive things forward from a management perspective, so that CANDDID can address some of the challenges that we face delivering operational services to our local communities of people with learning disabilities and neurodevelopmental conditions.
That's great. Thanks both. So can I ask where the idea for CANDDID came from? And can I also ask you to define what CANDDID is? The name.
So it's Center for Autism, Neurodevelopmental Disorders and Intellectual Disability. And I cannot take credit for the name. I think my colleague Mahesh, he came up with CANDDID as the name, and we quite liked it because I think a lot of the thing about autism is about being candid. So we thought, yes, that's a great idea. But CANDDID as a name came much later. The idea started much before that, and I think partly just to give a background, I worked in London until 2016. So all my clinical work and my academic work was London-centric at the time. We decided to move away from London to leafy Cheshire to have a better pace of life. I don't think whether that has worked or not. That's a different question. But when I moved to Northwest, I kind of noticed that London has a lot of academic activities taking place, a lot of research taking place. There were a lot of training opportunities, etc., etc. There were a lot of academic platforms that were driving work around people with intellectual disability, autistic, and autistic people. And I felt that we need to consider something similar for Northwest, create an academic platform where actually clinicians can come together. The other issue that I wanted us to consider was academic research versus clinically led research. So there is a lot of work that is taking place nationally, but when we look at the clinicians who are actively involved in research in this area, there are not that many. There are quite a lot, but there are not that many compared to some of the other fields. So we wanted to think about how we can bring that clinical focus to academic activity. And I think the third consideration for us was how do we make sure that it addresses all the work that we do addresses the questions that are important for the people that we work for. So those with intellectual disability, those who are autistic, how do we address their needs? So that was the initial consideration. I have a great colleague. You will meet him in one of these podcasts, Dr. Mahesh Odiur. So we were having this conversation on our way to Cardiff. I was academic secretary at the time for the Royal College of Psychiatry, Faculty of Intellectual Disability, and we were going to the conference. So we had this conversation. We started exchanging ideas. This was in 2016. And that's where we thought, oh, yes, we need to set up something that will bring everyone together and thrive some academic activities in this area. So that was the origin of the idea. It took us a couple of years to realize it, but yes, that's how it's all started.
That's really interesting. So it happened on the way to Cardiff. That's where CANDDID was.
Yeah, we always say it started on a train. It started on a train in a long-winded conversation about some of the challenges that that we face delivering services that best meet population needs. And I would just add to that, that's against a background where we have a declining workforce in learning disability psychiatry and a declining workforce in learning disability nursing. So from an operational perspective, if you have less people coming into the workforce to deliver care for people with learning disabilities and autistic people and those with neurodevelopmental conditions, you need to think very carefully about, are we delivering the most effective care, and are we meeting the main needs that those people have? And so the idea of bringing all of that together so that we're looking at training and educating staff so that they are the best that they can be and are using evidence-based medicine. Basing everything that we do around the population needs and the issues that are the most important for them. And then developing the research base, because what we found was that a lot of the research wasn't really thinking about addressing the problems that that people were telling us about in their day-to-day conversations in clinic, in hospital, about their particular challenges and needs.
And I think you're right, Maddie, isn't it? That it wasn't just about research. We wanted to address quite a few things. And I think that's why we wanted to create a platform that will allow us to bring people together to address some of those things. Obviously, kind of research always remains one of the area of focus of any academic development. But we wanted, when we first set up, we had three areas that we wanted to focus on. We wanted research that was informed by those with lived experience and clinically led. We wanted to develop opportunities for higher level qualifications in this area. So we wanted to think about postgraduate certificate programs, master's level program, PhD levels program, etc., etc. Wanted to focus on undergraduate teaching as well as postgraduate teaching that brought this whole neurodevelopmental condition agenda forward. And we wanted to in mental health or any other area, because I think just because someone is not directly working in this field doesn't mean they don't come across or have to actually support people with learning disability or who are autistic. So we kind of kept that broader focus of training, research, and education to start with. I mean, it has expanded since, but that's how we started.
That's really interesting, and that was my next question, which you both answered perfectly. So thank you. In terms of how CANDDID had evolved over time. So can I now ask you maybe to think about it from a kind of a personal and professional perspective? So can you share a moment or a milestone that really stands out to you since 2016 to today? And I'm going to ask Maddie first, if that's okay.
I read that I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I've got several, but the one that I think the moment that felt really good for me was it was, I think, our third or fourth CANDDID conference. It was the one after the pandemic. We had done an online conference during the pandemic, which I think was our second or third, I can't remember now. Which was really well attended, but was very strange on the day for us because we had the speakers in the room, but it was all virtual delivery, and we had people moderating chat rooms, and it was quite technically quite difficult. And then the year after, we did a hybrid conference because we still weren't quite out of the pandemic. There was still a lot of social distancing and all the rest of it. So we did. We had a hotel where people could attend, but people could also watch watch the conference online. And suddenly it felt as if we were back with people who were really committed to this agenda, who were meeting and networking and learning from each other and making connections in a different way. And were delighted to be back in the room. And that was really exciting for me because I thought, actually, we've gone through starting it, we've survived the pandemic bit, and then there are people who had come to the first conference who weren't local, who were coming again, and who were making that effort post-pandemic. And I can remember sitting in that room and thinking, this has got legs. This is something that people really want and are committed to coming to. And that was a really powerful moment for me, I think.
Yeah, that was a very good conference, isn't it? It had a very good program. I mean, generally our conferences have been quite well attended, but yes, it was post-pandemic, but not post-pandemic, but towards the tail end of the pandemic. That one was. Yeah, so I think just as a kind of a background, we decided that if we are setting up a academic platform, we do need to have also a platform where people can come and present their work, a platform where we can actually bring experts nationally and internationally, bring them into the Northwest so that actually staff gets an opportunity and exposure to what's been happening at the cutting edge of academia. So that was the reason behind setting up this conferences. And we had, is it 6 now? Isn't it 6 or 7? Might be, we lose count. But yes, I think we every year, March, we have our annual scientific conference. But I was just going to kind of think about the moment, and another moment for us that strikes out, I'm sure Maddie you will agree, is our first stakeholder event. So we were actually, like I said, we always wanted co-production to be the center of everything we do. And we always debated, well, how do we get to that? And I think kind of, you make sort of efforts here and there. But we were thinking, well, how do we actually even start research activity with a blank page? How do we actually start thinking about research question in a partnership with someone with lived experience and what's important to them. So we decided to try something different, and we had our first stakeholder conference about 4 years ago, I think. And we invited autistic people, people with learning disability, their families, carers, etc. And we thought we'll bring them in one room. We had a lot of small group discussions. We had experts working in the field talking about their experiences, those with lived experience, talking about their experiences. I think that first one we had Paula McGowan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who
We had Paula
attended.
McGowan from the Oliver McGowan campaign.
Yeah.
She was an absolutely amazing speaker.
Yeah. She moved the auditorium, isn't it, with her talk? It was quite powerful talk. She talked about Oliver. So that was actually quite a critical moment, because I think it gave us a template in terms of how we should be doing our business. So we had academics in the room, we had clinicians with passion and interest in the area in the room, but more importantly, we had over 100 people with lived experience in the room, and they all took part in small groups to define or to tell us actually what our research agenda should be, what our training agenda should be, what we should be focusing our activities on. And that was quite useful. We have since then done a couple of more events. Yes, that was one of the another standout moment for me.
And just to reflect on that, I think I've definitely noticed at the stakeholder events that often you can go to stakeholder events where people are consulted, those with lived experience are consulted, but I've found with the CANDDID events that it's people with lived experience who are actually leading the discussions. And it's not just a tick box exercise, it feels very authentic, it feels very real. So I think CANDDID should be really proud of itself as a centre that it's managed to do that in a meaningful way. I think there's lots that other people can probably share from those experiences. So can I ask how has the team changed or grown over time? When we talk about CANDDID, the individuals that make up CANDDID, how has that changed over time?
Well, there's not much change actually. Most of the people who were involved right from the beginning are still there and part of CANDDID, and partly because they were there for the right reasons and for right passion. So I think that way we have been quite fortunate that we can bank on these committed clinicians who want to make a difference. But not just clinicians. We have actually a cohort of those with lived experience who contribute quite a lot in terms of what we are doing and what we want to do. So, for example, our local parent carer forums, they contribute quite a lot to CANDDID activities. So at that level, we have been fortunate. I mean, of course, over the year, our agenda has expanded and more people have joined. Most of the people who join are doing specific projects with CANDDID, whether they're contributing to our postgraduate program by providing teaching, or they're doing specific research projects, evaluation projects, etc. So that's how it has grown. Everyone has a day job, and most of the work is done on top of what people are already doing. And I think that's the commitment of NHS staff that you see, isn't it? That's what has made this possible. In terms of the changes over a period of time, I think I would say it's the collaborations. That what has been different, that we have started developing quite significant collaborative works. So we are working with few universities on some of the projects. So although CANDDID is an NHS organization, we do actually work quite closely with university colleagues across nationally. So, I'm working with colleagues from Leicestershire, colleagues from London area, etc. We are developing collaborations with third sector providers. We are developing collaborations with other NHS organizations regionally. So I think that's what is probably, it's different, that it started with a small group of people, and they still are there at the core, but as a CANDDID community, it has expanded. We work with NHS England regularly. We are part of the conversation with some of our colleagues there. So yes, it has changed in some respect while mentioning the core. And I look at it as that CANDDID is for everyone working with CANDDID, doing projects with us. They are all part of the CANDDID community. And if I can add, there are some international colleagues who are part of work that we are doing as well. Sorry, Maddie, you were just coming in.
No, I was just going to add really that what we've really discovered is that what people are interested in doing with us is either contributing towards events. So we have an annual scientific conference and an annual, and then we run a series of events for stakeholders. We used to have an annual stakeholder event, but we've kind of changed from that a little bit as we learn. And we recognise now that perhaps we need to break that up and make that a little bit more targeted to specific audiences. For example, a big event that is addressing both people with autism and ADHD, as well as people with learning disabilities, can be quite challenging for the individuals with intellectual disability to attend. So we're kind of recognising that we might need to do things slightly differently so that we get maximum representation at things, and we make them very inclusive. But what we've found really in terms of our partnerships and our collaborations is that they're often around a specific topic or a specific research project, and they might move with time. So we might have an organisation that wants to partner with us for a specific project, and that might be a cut. It might start and finish, or it might start, finish, but then lead on to something else. And that's really wonderful, because what we're building is a much richer community of individuals across a wider geography who are interested in solving the problems of the people we serve. And so what started as a conversation around how do we do this well for our own population is becoming far more a conversation about how do we collectively, as practitioners working in this field globally, how do we use evidence-based research? How do we keep everybody up to date with latest research methods? And how do we do that working with the people that we serve so that we are answering the questions that are important at this moment in time for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think
it has. It has evolved over a period of time, isn't it? As we learned, as we developed those partnership, actually, how we do things and how we develop, it has evolved, and our understanding has evolved, and our partnerships have evolved.
I think that's certainly something I've noted, that it's not kind of bound, it's not prescriptive in some respects. CANDDID, it's quite agile and organic, which I think mirrors the type of work that you're involved with, and also it makes it feel very inclusive. That I know when I've attended stakeholder events, everybody in the room feels part of it, which I think is one of the key parts of CANDDID, that it is inclusive and it is changing and it's flexible. Taking all of that aside, obviously CANDDID still has to have impact, it still has to produce. So can I ask what impact you're hoping? I know you've had various, you've made huge impacts already, but are you hoping to achieve certain things over the next 12 months, over the next 2 years?
we want to work on what stakeholders have told us. And I think if I can say that, or what kind of our immediate objectives are. Mary knows I like to think in 2-3 years, 5-10 years, 15-20 years as well. It's always good to have some direction. But I think for us, the immediate thing is how do we answer the questions that our stakeholders have raised, the questions that came from those with lived experience. And it's a huge area to address. So we are actually slowly working on some of those areas through individual projects. For example, we're just finishing a project on RFID in autistic children and young people. We are actually looking at a project around effective community mental health care, which is an NIHR-funded study that we are doing. It's a 4-year project. So we are addressing some of those questions. But we are also thinking about developing study designs that haven't done before to address many of those questions together. For example, we would like to explore possibility of setting up a cohort study design so that we can address some of those questions that were coming up from stakeholder conference through that study design. So there are plans, immediate plans in terms of how we take that forward. We also we have been very conscious with regards to our stakeholder engagement. And I know we did this very successful 3 events. So the 3rd event was very different from the first 2 because what we noticed that people with intellectual disability were less represented in the first 2 sessions. So the 3rd one, which Carrie, I think you attended, isn't it? We focused on those with intellectual disability. We had various activities to engage with them and take their viewpoints into account. So we are conscious that we have to adapt our approaches to engage with people. So I think the next thing over the year or 2 years we also want to focus on is how do we engage with underserved communities who might be struggling to access services, but might be struggling to have voice in this sort of work as well. So for us, that's important. We do want to start focusing on health inequalities. I think that's an area that requires quite a bit of attention. I know it's a priority area for NHS as well. The 10-year plan talks about health inequalities, preventative care. I think there is a scope to do quite a lot of positive work that will make a huge difference to health and well-being. So next 2-3 years, that's what we will be focusing on.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I think is really challenging in this is if you look at the national learning from lives and the lives and deaths of people with intellectual disability and autistic people, the LEDA programme, what we are not seeing is evidence-based research on how to turn that on how to address the main causes of early mortality, premature mortality in these populations. And that's something that we really want to get into. So we know very much that people die prematurely. What we haven't got is systematic evidence of how to turn that around. And if you actually read the new NHS 10-year plan that's just recently been published, there's emphasis in there around the impact of neighbourhood health centres that might be positive on premature mortality. But what I'm really interested in from an operational delivery perspective is what is it that we need to put into those neighbourhood health centres that will make the real difference? Because we can invest lots of money in learning disability liaison nurses and various other things, but actually are those making the difference over time? And you know, it's really important that if we have limited resources within the NHS and we have a limited workforce, that we target those resources to the things that are going to be the most effective for that population. And I'm really hopeful that CANDDID can make a real impact over time on that agenda, because what we want is people to have rich, fulfilling, healthy lives for as long as possible. And I think that we can really contribute in that space.
Yeah, I mean, thanks both. The point on health inequalities, I think, is really stark. Something that we can't ignore. I know I think it was the first conference I attended, or the first meeting, and there was some stats put up on one of the presentations, and I was bowled over by. I didn't know a lot of that information about how people with neurological conditions and the overlapping problems that they face in terms of, racism, poverty, inclusion, all of those things that kind of feed into health inequalities that it's kind of unseen, and it's not talked about enough. You hear kind of key stories in the media, but you don't get to really understand what the key problems are. And I'm really glad you both touched on the NHS plan, because I was going to throw that in as a bit of a curveball to you both about, well, not really curveball, because I know you're both very well versed on what's going on at the moment. So I think there are lots of challenges that face CANDDID, but also lots of opportunities that I think you've both picked up on. Sorry, Sajid, do you want to?
No, I mean, I think intersectionality is quite an important area. And I think kind of when we look at the population of intellectual disability, within that, we need to actually address some of the issues based on intersectionality, and it doesn't get addressed. People tend to kind of consider the population of people with intellectual disability as a homogeneous population. It is not. The experiences are quite different, and same for autistic people as well. And there are very specific issues, and I think there are some academics addressing those, but we need to address those at service level. And I think this is where perhaps thinking about more service-based research will be quite helpful, using data science, using kind of population level matrix. That's going to be helpful in terms of how we plan our services.
Yeah, and we know that we've got lots of data in the NHS at the moment, so I suppose it's how we use that data most responsibly.
Absolutely.
So is there anything that you, as a key point that you think we've not discussed, that you want to, whether it's personal or professional, that you think we could end on in terms of what CANDDID is about and kind of the next steps for CANDDID?
I suppose if I can come in first, and Sajid can have a bit of thinking time, because he'll come up with something wonderful in a minute. No pressure there. I think the first thing I'd want to say is, if you are a parent carer, somebody with autism or intellectual disability or a neurodevelopmental condition, or you are working in this field, our door is open. We would love to see you at any of our events. We would love you to listen to this podcast. We would love you to approach us with any ideas for research and collaboration, because we're really interested in getting services right at a really operational level for people, and you will be able to help us do that. Whatever your experience is, whether it's positive or negative, our door is open to you, and we would love to have you come test us out, see how you feel. The other thing that we haven't mentioned at all is that we run the editorial board for a journal for advances in mental health and intellectual disability, and actually that was going to be alongside some of our conferences and our various other things that we do. That's been something that we're really keen to progress with, and to up the journal content within that journal, to get that journal to be something that people come to, so that they can learn more about the research, both nationally and internationally. So again, if you are thinking about publishing a journal article or doing a bit of work in that area, and you're interested in getting published, again, get in touch with us, because we might be interested in what you have to offer. And lastly, from me, we're open to ideas as well as to people. So we like to listen. and no idea is silly to us. If there is something important to you that you think we should be looking at, then please let us know. We have a bank of research questions. Sajit sometimes phones me and says, oh, the bank of research questions has got longer. How are we going to do it all? But actually, the way that we're going to do that is together.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maddie.
I think in a way I always have 3 points, and this is, Maddie, that we talk about high mind, isn't it? Actually, we think the same, and I had exactly those things to say to an extent. So the journal Maddie referred to, that's Advances in Mental Health and Intellectual Disability. So that's Emerald Publication. So CANDDID supports and manages that journal on behalf of Emerald Publication, and I think this is where actually probably 3 areas for people to think in. First, we are planning to do this more. So do tune in. We will get kind of people with expertise, experience, and background in the area to come and talk and share their point of views. So do tune in. Keep an eye on what's coming next. You can find more details on our website, which is www.candid.nhs.uk. Do get in touch, as Maddie said. Do get in touch if you want to support any of the activities. Again, you will find some of the details of the activities on our website. If you want to support any of those activities, if you want to advocate on behalf of people that you work with, or you're advocate on behalf of yourself or your community, please do get in touch. As Maddie said, to tell us. We are always there. We are listening. We are learning. If you want to get involved in whatever capacity, to get in touch. And when I talk about actually getting involved, you can take part in the research activity. You can take part in shaping the research activity that we are doing, or you can actually develop a project or idea in partnership with us. And when I say you, I'm talking about actually those with lived experience, those families and carers, talking about clinicians who might have interest in this area, have an idea, want to develop that further. If you're academic, if you're like budding academic, anyone, just get in touch and be part of this community.
I think that was a really interesting whistle-stop tour, I suppose, of CANDDID. It was we haven't gone into too much depth on each of the areas, but I think it certainly gives people an oversight into how CANDDID works, and I really enjoyed listening to both of your experiences of being part of CANDDID. So thank you very much.